Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Um, Welcome everyone to our second virtual Q&A for small businesses and small business owners in Pennsylvania. I'm Christopher Baxter, the editor-in-chief of Spotlight PA, an independent, nonpartisan newsroom covering the state government and urgent statewide issues. We are a unique news organization in that we provide our work to 32 newsrooms across the state at no cost, part of our mission to better inform and empower Pennsylvanians in all corners of the state. In order to do that, we rely on donations from readers as well as the support of the Lenfest Institute for Journalism, which is the nonprofit owner of the Philadelphia Inquirer, as well as foundations across the state. If you value this webinar today and want to help us continue to provide them, you can look us up at spotlightpa.org or make a gift at spotlightpa.org/donate. As always, Spotlight PA operates independently of all of its funders and event participants and takes no position on the issues discussed today. Funders and participants do not have input into the selection of which stories we pursue or the reporting process for those stories. Funders do not review any content before publication or have any special access to reporters or newsroom leadership. In short, we answer to you, the public. Finally, we want you to know that we're recording today's webinar, so those who are unable to attend or want to watch at another time are able to do so. I'm thrilled to welcome our three panelists here today with a bit of a focus on the Lehigh Valley, talk about resources available to small businesses, and most importantly, answer your questions and provide useful tips and strategies to endure this time. As we all know, small businesses are really the lifeblood of our communities and our downtown. So this is a really very important topic. I'm going to introduce each of the panelists and have them give a short overview of their organizations and what they've been dealing with related to the virus. Then we'll open it up to questions from the audience, and I'll throw in some prompts for discussion as well. If you're new to Zoom webinars, you can ask a question by clicking the Q&A button on the toolbar. And then you'll be prompted to ask a question, and we'll be able to see those and sort through them as we go. And if your question is for a particular panelist, please just say that when you submit it, and we'll direct it to the right person. So again, the Q&A feature in the toolbar is the best and easiest way to ask a question. We'll kick things off with Juliana Bolivar, the Business Development Coordinator at Community Action Development Corporation of Bethlehem. Juliana, welcome to the group, and tell us a little bit about what you've been up to.
Well, thank you, and good morning, everyone. What we do at CDCB, as we were talking this morning, we provide services to entrepreneurs and small business owners to help them establish and grow their business. We've done this for more than 20 years. We help all kinds of business, and we offer small business classes, individual support for business owners, marketing assistance, networking, and creating a vibrant community that can connect between business owners, that they can create ventures together, and we can support each other in the road. Right now, the situation is completely new, and I think we're all trying to figure out best ways to work together, but that's what we're here for.
Great, thank you, Juliana. Appreciate it. Next up, we'll turn to Brett Smith, the Director of the Small Business Development Center at Lehigh. Brett, tell us a little bit about what you do there and what you've been hearing from folks.
Sure, thanks, Chris. So we are, we're a partner with CADCB. We're one of SBA's resource partners. We've been around, this is our 40th year here in the Lehigh Valley. We cover, the SBCs cover the entire state, but our office specifically focuses on Lehigh, Northampton, Upper Bucks, and Northern Montgomery counties. We are a no-cost, confidential, one-on-one resource to talk to you about, in normal times, we talk about anything from starting your business, finding financing, general, business consulting, exporting, government contracting, all that type of stuff. But the majority of what we're talking about with clients now are, of course, the EIDL and PPP programs, along with any other types of funding that are out there locally. And just in launched recently is our Planning for Recovery series, which is a webinar we've been holding weekly and will be expanding to be a statewide resource later on in the year or in the next month or so. And, just trying to help businesses plan for those next steps.
Great, thank you. Glad to have you. And next up, Kevin Shivers, the President and CEO of the Pennsylvania Association of Community Bankers. Kevin, thanks for coming back for your second tour of duty.
Thank you again for inviting me, Chris, and really want to applaud Spotlight PA. I spent 17 years working for small business owners prior to joining the Pennsylvania Association of Community Bankers, and forums like you've put on here are really important to break the isolation for many sole proprietors and single member LLCs, and especially for business owners who are all stuck at home, unable to work. These types of exchanges are incredibly valuable, and Spotlight PA should be applauded for actually going outside your normal role of just reporting the news to be able to put together exchanges like this, which are really valuable. I also want to applaud the organizations, the panelists who represent the organizations here today. In my past life, I've had the opportunity to work with both of these organizations and would highly recommend to your viewers to reach out to them for assistance. Both organizations can provide unique and strategic advice to help you during these extremely dynamic times. I represent small banks, community banks in Pennsylvania. There are over 140 of them that are headquartered and doing business here in Pennsylvania. Our first experience with the COVID-19 pandemic occurred, all the way back end of February and early March, when banks were seeing, this rise in the infection rate in this country, and started taking steps to protect and safeguard their business operations to ensure that there was an actual financial institutions that were operating, and to protect the money supply. Many banks locked their lobbies for the first time in 120 years and then they had to adjust their business operations, extending their teller window service, or using their parking lots as lobbies where business owners and other customers could take care of their personal banking needs. So an extraordinary time. In addition, most of these community banks were at the tip of the spear in distributing the first round of Paycheck Protection loans. In Pennsylvania, there were 69,000 loans that were processed in the first round of funding, totaling $69 billion. As of yesterday morning, there were $52 billion worth of loans that had been approved for 475,000 small businesses nationally. We were excited as an organization because we worked hard to include in the second round of funding $60 billion that was set aside for community banks to be able to ensure that all communities across the state and across the nation had access to this critical lifeline. Already, most of those $60 billion that have been set aside have already been approved. There are over 400,000 loans that went to small businesses through those community banks and community development financial institutions.
Great, wonderful. Thanks so much for being here again, Kevin. Just remind everyone who's joined us that in order to ask a question of the panel, you can use the Q&A feature in Zoom. On the toolbar, there's a Q&A button. And if you click that button, you can then enter a question and we can direct it to the panelists and get it answered. Kevin, I wanted to start going to you with this second round of stimulus that's been approved for more of the PPP loans. Two things. One, I saw as part of that, some of that money is specifically directed to small businesses in certain areas, and I was wondering if you could talk about that. And then also, there's been some reporting that if you don't already have an application in the pipeline, that the new money may essentially already be spoken for. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Sure, thank you. Well, one of the concerns, and quite honestly, Spotlight PA was one of the first news outlets who picked up on this concern, is that in that first round of funding, there were, minority businesses, disadvantaged businesses, rural businesses that were left out of the $350 billion that had been earmarked in the first round of funding. And one of the reasons why is that in rural areas of states like Pennsylvania, many large national banks don't have a presence. They don't have a branch. They don't have any facilities there. So if you're in a rural community, the only chance that you had of getting a paycheck protection loan was through your local community bank. Additionally, in urban areas, and this is true with many small businesses, they didn't have a relationship with a bank. And if they did have a relationship with a bank, they didn't have a relationship with a large national bank. And that had nothing to do with the poor quality of service, or, it's just, if you're a small business concern, you're talking about very small enterprises, so small that they didn't really qualify for a typical, or even had a need for a typical small business loan. And the challenge that many of these businesses ran into is that because they didn't have an established business relationship when the funding stream started, they were pushed back a couple of days because you had to open up a bank account, and there are federal rules that are intended to protect our money supply from, the bad guys and money laundering. So, when you start an account, it's going to take a couple of days before you can access those accounts and be an established customer. So you had many of these community banks who were already helping their existing set of customers. You're opening new accounts, but you're delayed in when those accounts can come online. So there was a delay in those businesses being able to apply for their loans. In addition, there were provisions established in the original round of money that said that if you're a sole proprietor or an independent contractor or self-employed, you had to wait a week in order to begin the application process. So you had, scores of the smallest businesses in Pennsylvania that didn't have an opportunity to get access to these loans at a very important point. So one of the points that our organization, as the Pennsylvania Association of Community Bankers, we lobbied Congress. We worked with Senator Toomey, Senator Casey, Congresswoman Dean down in your area, and other members of the congressional delegation, and they recognized that community banks played a vital role. There's a symbiotic relationship with small business, and as a result, they were able to include in the final law a set aside of about $60 billion, number one. And number two, there were no prohibitions that self-employed or independent contractors had to wait. There was no waiting period. Additionally, you had a number of small businesses who were denied loans when the money ran out in the first round. Well, those applications were still good. And this was something I think that the Small Business Administration and the Treasury Department did right, is they didn't force those people to the back of the line. They allowed those community banks to be able to submit their applications. Now, the challenge that we faced was on Monday, the system was horribly slow. There were some processes that were established by the Small Business Administration. We had many banks in an entire day, they were able to process 4 loans. They changed that process yesterday, and we got to see a little bit more normal activity. And as a result, you had banks that were processing 80 and 100 loans in the day. We're already through, about $60 billion right now. I think we're burning through the money at about $2 to $3 billion an hour as we speak. To your point about, if I haven't done anything, am I going to be left out? My advice would be to any business owner who is contemplating taking one of these loans, make the phone call now to your banker and have that conversation, find out the documentation that you need. Because as the system has gotten, as these banks have become more efficient in processing these loans, they're being able to process them quicker, which means the money is going to run out sooner. So I highly encourage anyone who is sitting at home making a business decision about whether or not they're eligible or whether or not they should take advantage of the loan, make the call now to your banker to be able to get in line. Additionally, you can go to our website, pacb.org, and you can see the banks that are members of our organization, and you can reach out to those in your area to find out if they're participating in the Paycheck Protection Program. Especially if you don't have a banking relationship, it's really important, again, that you become a customer to be able to get into the system.
Great, wonderful, thank you. We have a question in from Jeanette Rilling, and I'm going to allow her to join the group here and unmute her. Jeanette, can you hear us? Jeanette, if you're there, I think if you just hit unmute, you can ask your question. Otherwise, I'm happy to just read it from where you typed it in. Okay, well, we'll see if she can join us, but otherwise, I'll read it here from the Q&A. She says, her husband is self-employed, sole member LLC. He was told that the new PUA and unemployment would end up better for him than the PPP. He was denied the EIDL, though he did get the advance, which I assume here she means the $10,000 advance. The problem is this program is unlikely to pay anytime soon, which I think we've heard about some delays with the advances. Though he filed the day it was up and running, is it possible that the PUA and UC will run out of money before he sees anything? I'm not sure if Brett or Kevin or Juliana, who wants to grab that?
I know a little bit about the unemployment compensation system. We've been hearing a lot recently in the paper that our unemployment trust fund is going to run out of money. Again, if you've lost your job through no fault of your own, the federal government we're going to be able to continue to fund unemployment. Obviously, what that means long-term down the road is that businesses are going to be paying higher payroll taxes to be able to make up the funds that have been depleted. It's interesting because back in 2011 and 12, we actually floated a bond in Pennsylvania because in 2008 and 9, the last recession, we ran into a very similar circumstance with unemployed, not nearly to this level, but the state floated a bond to be able to repay money that had been borrowed from the federal unemployment trust fund to pay out claims during that recession. Interestingly, we just paid off that final bond payment earlier this year, I think in January, and employers' rates for unemployment had actually been reduced. So, again, before this pandemic, things were moving in a really terrific direction. But I would suspect you're probably going to see something similar going forward, that if the state fund runs out of money, there will be a request from the federal unemployment trust fund for, additional funds. Congress may choose to act and apply additional monies, but there will be funds available for people who've lost their job through no fault of their own.
Great, thanks. Juliana, there's a question here. Someone's asking generally if there are any grants available for startups for the current year. And I know you had talked a little bit about folks in this climate, which is actually something we haven't touched on. who are actually looking to start a business. Can you talk a little bit about what you've been talking to folks about who want to start a business right now, and also what resources you found that would be available to them?
Yes, that's a great question. So the Rising Tide is our main option right now for startups. If Rising Tide is our sister organization through community action in the Lehigh Valley, we will be happy to help you applying for a line of credit if that's the option for you, or a regular term loan. The grants available at the local level would be for existing businesses, and that would be Northampton County. I don't know exactly how much money is left. They put out a fund, is a line of credit, no payments required for 11 months, and the lump sum would be due at the end of the 12th month. Zero interest, but that's basically for existing businesses. Bethlehem also, the city of Bethlehem also put out funds for existing businesses in our district, in our local district. That's also a grant available. However, those are limited to people that already were registered and functioning to in some way support them, because they need to keep paying rent, utilities, other type of obligations that don't wait. But I would encourage, if you think that your business is still like appropriate to launch it, definitely I will help you move forward in applying for a regular loan or line of credit.
Great. And Brett, through the SBDC, what for folks who are looking to start a business, what resources or suggestions would you make to them? And I know you're based in the Lehigh Valley, but for folks who may not be there, I know there's a lot of SBDCs. Where could they turn for guidance or assistance?
Sure. So just to also touch on the grant side of things, the best thing to do is to just, pay attention to the news, social media for the different economic development agencies. The chamber has had grants come out, but they, Easton had a program come out, but they all pretty much go almost as soon as they are announced. So really, one, check the eligibility requirements, but two, make sure you're applying as soon as you possibly can. For other startup resources, statewide, the best place to go is the PA One-Stop Shop. So it's run through the PA Department of Community and Economic Development, and it provides a lot of those great startup resources, what licensing you might need, the different types of whether you're an LLC, corporation, sole proprietor. It talks about those things and then directs you to the appropriate resources in your area. So there's us as the SBDCs to walk you through that process. Juliana's organization as well can do that. And there's also your local SCORE chapter, which is one of our partners as well.
Great, thanks. Before we got going, there was a question from one of our attendees, Bruce Frassinelli, who I'll allow to talk here if he wants to unmute and ask. But his question was along the lines, and I wondered, Juliana or Brett, we're talking about reopening, but a lot of these small businesses are still going to have a lot of restrictions in terms of how they can operate, how they have to space things out, how they can take customers. And what are you hearing from folks who are saying, like, yeah, I could reopen, but if I can only fill half my tables or half my seats, is it really enough to be profitable and go off of these other assistance programs?
Yeah, so I'll start at least. A lot of what we're seeing, and this is, kind of what we're talking about in the webinar that we've been doing, is, understanding, a lot of the restaurants are still probably going to stick with the curbside and, delivery model, at least going forward. It's, the best way to do it is, is do some short-term planning, figure out at what stage, do that sensitivity analysis, figure out what, how many seats can I be profitable, and is it worth it? And are there other ways that you can possibly innovate? Maybe, some restaurants have been doing family type meals. Maybe you're only open a couple days, where it's enough to get people in the door, but it's, not where you're having, maybe to balance those labor costs with that. It's really, just one of the things we're really advocating is for people to try and innovate and find ways to do things a little differently, and making and while it's tough for a restaurant for sure, a lot of the restaurants here in the Valley have certainly successfully done the delivery and curbside model. A lot have expanded to online phone and online offerings that didn't before. So it might just be trying a little more of that, keeping those offerings while they try and stagger reopening.
Chris,
I think I'm sorry.
go ahead, Juliana, forgive me.
I think on my side, I totally agree with Brett. As a business owner myself, I wondered the same. My parents own a small business, and there are certain limitations in the clients that we can still serve when we open the economy and the things that I can do. So I think creativity is our main tool right now, trying to see, and with the contractors I'm working as well right now, I tell them in advance, or like with all this time we still have, put together safety guidelines. I know this is unknown and we didn't have anything in place for a situation like this, but kind of putting together guidelines for your employees, how to open doors, what's the protocol. I am doing that for my business. It's not required yet. There's no law that says that I need to have that, but if I am prepared in advance, that's a big step. It's time that I have in my side. The other thing is, many small businesses were doing fine, as restaurants, as whatever service you're providing. So we were okay with how we were operating. Maybe we don't have as strong online presence. Maybe we didn't have to innovate our model. So right now it's go on the internet. I know there's a limitation in what you can do too, but create new things. So if that's a meal prep service that you can have ready and figure it out how you're going to put it together in your restaurant, is that a better menu online is transforming. I've seen a lot of hairstylists and nail artists are very affected by all this, so they're putting together certain new services and kits that they can deliver, launching new products. I think all that in every industry can apply, is working in our creativity and new processes and services that adapt to the needs of your customer in the present time.
Chris, I was just going to add to that conversation. I was talking 2 weeks ago with a restaurant industry representative who explained to me their estimates were that 30% of the restaurants were not going to reopen. That's a sobering number when you think about that. 3 in 10 restaurants aren't going to make it. Was talking with that same industry representative today, and they told me that number is now even dramatically higher. My recommendation or my ask of your viewers today is to take advantage, purchase a gift card, or many restaurants now are hosting food trucks, variety of different ways that they're trying to support their local customers or support their local restaurants. So something that your viewers can do to help out in this extraordinary time.
Great, thanks. For the three of you, there was some reporting yesterday about the PPP program and concerns about sort of equitable access, and whether minority groups, minority-owned businesses were able to access the loans as much as other businesses who may, again, have had pre-existing loan relationships with banks, or otherwise just may have had more access to information. Juliana, especially, South Side Bethlehem, the business owners in downtown Allentown outside of the development zone, those more community businesses. What have you been seeing or hearing from folks about access to these programs and difficulties that folks have had?
Well, my experience, I help apply a ton of business owners. Very few of them actually end up getting the loan in the first round. I hope that since the application are there, they're able to benefit from this in the second round. One thing is, I know this banks receive applications equivalent to 5 years of the regular amount of applications. I understand that. It was confusing. I know that my business owners, there's a lot of Spanish speaking business owners, and they are comfortable with the regular business and functioning, and they take care of their contracts. But when you're getting into a responsibility like this, you want to understand 100% how I am able to qualify for the forgiveness of this loan and what the terms are. So let's see and read through that. I think that's stressful for anyone trying to apply for a loan, understand, work from home, run your family. I think is extremely stressful, and we add that. Let's say plan ahead how you're going to use those funds, what's the appropriate way to dispose the funds, and be prepared for that. I think that was a bit nerve-wracking for small business owners, and I'm putting together like a short way to visualize the conditions of how can, if you get benefited from the PPP, how can you qualify for the forgiveness in an easy way to understand, so people don't stress out too much about that part. The other concern I saw was, is my bank really advocating for me because I don't have this huge loan? I have an account, my money comes in there, I don't have any obligations. So I know there are other concerns that business that have debt don't go out of business because it's their money being risked. So that was the other main concern from the business owners I work with.
Yeah, Juliana raises a lot of valid concerns. For many small businesses, this is probably the biggest loan that they've ever taken, and for many of them, they didn't have the rules of what they needed to do to ensure that this loan was going to be forgiven, that it was going to truly be a grant. Now, to give some perspective there, when you take a look at like the Marshall Plan that was put in place to reopen Europe after World War II, well, in today's dollars, that would have amounted to about $112 billion, and it took 4 years to invest that to reopen Europe. This is a program that now is $600 billion, and banks had 14 days to distribute 350 billion of it, and now we're expecting that this next round of 310 billion will be distributed within 7 days. So when you take a look at the effort on the part of Congress, a part of the Small Business Administration and Treasury to get the money out into the economy, it's a pretty extraordinary thing. Unfortunately, we were giving out money. Banks were asked to start loaning out money before the rest of the rules had been written about, what you need to do. And there's a lot of risk. But I think you can take comfort in the fact that there is and I think this is a very confident issue. Congress's intent, the administration's intent, SBA, Treasury's intent, let's get the money into the hands of small businesses who need it most. And we'll deal with the other issues. So I do believe that these loans are going to be forgiven as long as these businesses follow through with it. The point that Juliana also made, and again, this is the biggest struggle that we had, and we've seen in the papers and in other TV reporting, a lot of publicly traded companies took advantage of these loans. A lot of large charities took advantage of these loans. Many of them were intended to help small business. The money ran out, well before the self-employed and the independent contractors even could get in line. So the hope is that we're going to provide as much relief as we possibly can here, in this next 7 days. Literally, 400,000 loans. Yesterday, delivered yesterday, through yesterday for small business borrowers from, community banks. Hopefully, with this set aside, more of those diverse populations, disadvantaged populations, had an opportunity to access those funds. I think something else that the SBA did right and Treasury did right in writing the rules is that they required that these loans be made on a first come, first served basis. And that was another way for this system to be colorblind, that they weren't, that banks were not allowed to pick and choose from favorite borrowers, their best customers. This was anybody who stood in line, you were there to get the loan. Secondly, I think something else that the regulators did right was that the Treasury, through the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, FDIC, the Fed, all of them have issued guidance to the lending community that they also follow rules regarding CRA, ensuring that disadvantaged businesses in very disadvantaged communities and various persons of color and culture and community have access to these funds. So I've been very pleased with what we have heard from the regulators in terms of direction and guidance to the lenders to encourage that we are able to support all populations. We'll see when the numbers shake out what that looks like, and I'm sure Juliana and Brett are hearing from their customers of color and culture right now, who are struggling still to get loans, and however my organization can be helpful with that. We certainly want to do that for your viewers.
So I'm sorry, one question. I have a lot of people who already applied with their bank. They had a relationship with a big national bank. They feel disappointed at this point, and they say, well, I want to switch and I want to go to one local bank. Since you mentioned that's going to be first come, first serve, is that a beneficial move? Should they wait with the application they already submit through this bank, or is it a good idea to try to go with another smaller local bank? Because that's what I see a lot of people are trying to do. What can I advise them?
So you're saying that you have a client who has already put in an application with a large bank, but they are just, they're concerned. They just don't feel like they have had the same kind of relationship. I would advise that you encourage your clients to start the conversation with those community banks where they may feel like they can get a better relationship. I certainly don't want to offer advice about whether or not you withdraw that loan. I think you need to get more. I think individually those businesses need to get more information. But I can just tell you from where I sit, the community banks, because those people who work in those institutions live in those communities, you're going to have a lot more access, and you're going to have a greater likelihood of having a real relationship with that lender. And for many small businesses, many of them have never had a business relationship with a bank because they never really needed it. I mean, the median amount that a small business starts with, about $18,000. You borrow that from family or friends, or get it off your credit card, or maybe you can find a grant or a microloan that government is offering. But these relationships really are important, especially during this time. So I would encourage you to just encourage your clients to at least start the conversations. They can figure out what they need to do to at that point, working together with their business advisors and at a new institution in terms of what really works for them.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. I wonder, Brett, if you could field this one. This is something I have heard from a few people, but Jenny Collins in the Q&A chat has asked that, for PPP, is it okay to just treat it as a loan and not use it for paycheck? Because it comes with a good rate, and I think it's a better interest rate than the state loan program was. Is that okay to just use it that way, or are there other ramifications that people should consider?
So how we're trying to guide our clients is, the way we understand the guidance is that you can use it, as long as you're clear about the loan purpose when you apply, and as long as you're properly documenting everything that you do with it, as long as you're upfront, the way we understand it is that you can use it as, it would then just become a non-forgivable loan and you would have to pay it back. We do caution clients that it's, it is only a 1-year term, or 1 or 2 years off the top of my head. So, it's not a lot of time to pay it back depending on the amount they get. But, they are going to be reviewing these very carefully. So if you go in saying you'll use it for payroll and then use it for other expenses, you will likely run into some issues. So documentation is really the biggest thing that we're advising at this point.
Chris, I mean, the only thing I would add to that comment that Brett had made is, again, when you sign these loan documents, you are certifying, that were it not for this assistance, you're going to go out of business, or you won't be able to hire people back. I mean, there are some real consequences to taking advantage of this program that employers really need to take a look at. And I think on the other side to that is, again, it's a 2-year payback. That's a lot of money to be paying back, even at a 1% rate, if you're not, if any part of it or all of it isn't forgiven. So that's something that your employers, the borrowers, should really walk into very carefully. Additionally, I would point out that yesterday, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin noted that any loan over $2 million would be subject to audit. So there is a serious intent that this money is to be used to pay employees. That was the whole point. It's the Paycheck Protection Program. This is to help employees who you had to let go through no fault of your own, and then some incidental expenses. I guess my point in making that comment is, here we are a month into this program, and new guidance just came out yesterday from Treasury saying now we're going to require audits of every loan over $2 million. I wouldn't doubt that we may have new guidance come out at a later date. There's nothing to indicate that we wouldn't get guidance that would say all loans are subject to audit, or loans above another amount. So it's just something that I would just encourage your entrepreneurs and business owners who take advantage of this, is to make sure that they follow the spirit of the law and just don't expect this to be free money. It's not just free money.
Great.
Yeah, and to go off of Kevin too, it's have that conversation with your banker up front, because they're going to have the most up-to-date guidance, and also, go to the SBA and Treasury websites where the actual rules are posted to make sure, again, you want to make sure you have that information up front before you get yourself in trouble.
I had one situation similar with a restaurant. They were planning, before all this happened, they were planning on expanding the number of employees. So they had some money saved for payroll expenses in payroll taxes. Of course, during this situation, they had to pay rent and other expenses, and that financial cushion just decreased substantially. So right now they want to apply for the Paycheck Protection so they can use that money for new employees and create new jobs. I think under the guidelines and how we've read them and going through them, that's still acceptable. You are creating jobs and you are intending to use that money as part of your payroll. So I think as long as we are using the money to support new jobs, that's the whole point, or existing jobs.
Great, thanks. That original question was from Jenny Collins, who I've allowed to talk here if she wants to unmute and chime in if she has any follow-up questions.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Hey, Jenny, thanks for joining us.
Hi. No, what I meant was we were one of the fortunate ones to receive the PPP loan initially, but it was before we were allowed to go back to full staff. So we brought a few people back to help us prep the building for our opening tomorrow. And now we'll be at full staff. But the question is meeting the 75% for payroll as required as the PPP loan. And if you're not able to utilize that full 75%, my comment was strictly that the 1% is still not a terrible amount for the difference if it gets your business up and operational.
Yeah, for sure. And, and the one benefit too is it's, the way we understand the program is that, it wouldn't make the entire loan unforgivable, just that portion that would fall under the 75%. So, the goal is to get as close as you possibly can.
Kevin, so may I ask a follow-up question? Because I've been in several webinars and kind of trying to get the information as clear for the business owners and provide the business guidelines. But I see that some business that would project that won't be able to use the total 75 are using bonus for people coming out to work during this time as an incentive to get them to return. So is that acceptable? That's what I read, that it is acceptable. I asked to the bank, they said, well, under the guidelines, it seems like it is, but just making sure so we are all on the same page.
I think you said bonuses
Yes.
were being used. Yeah, I mean, that's, and it's a challenge that we're hearing, Juliana, in the restaurant industry. I know a restaurateur in my area who finally received his loan, his cash on Monday, called the employees back, and a third of his workers said, no, I'm not coming back. And, you had workers who were, said to him very honestly, I'm getting paid more on unemployment than I'm getting, work coming back to work. You had others that were part of a risk group. Maybe I didn't want to expose myself. And then you had another segment of that population who, they're scared, and I just don't want to come back. And so, again, the question is how. And so what you're suggesting is that bonuses. Now, again, I don't want to offer a legal interpretation. I definitely want to encourage your clients to work with their, tax professionals and their legal professionals. I mean, as I understand the Paycheck Protection Program, I mean, the whole point is to get cash in the hands of employees. So, whether it's you're hiring somebody new, it's a new hire, or, bringing somebody back, or, paying for health benefits or other benefits, all of that is acceptable, under the terms of these loans. But definitely would encourage your clients, have that further conversation with their banker, have that conversation with their tax professional or whoever is providing them with advice. The good news I can report is that, last night at 7 o'clock, the Treasury Department issued finally guidance to banks about what are the rules regarding forgiveness. Admittedly, I haven't gone through those with a fine-tooth comb, but the good news is, the people that are lending the money, they now have those rules, and now they can, with 2020 vision, offer clearer expectations to their borrowers about what are the things that you need to do to have this money, forgiven, and it basically become a grant.
Yeah, yesterday we were working, I was working with a law firm, like a local law firm, and they helped me to put together this 12 key aspects to keep your loan if you want to do it forgivable. So yeah, one of the things where, as our interpretation, meaning the law firm, bonuses will be acceptable. But I wanted to hear, like, if you had any other comment to add.
No, you know what, and I really think that kudos to you, Juliana, and your team, and also to Brett, to find creative ways to help stretch this money, because I mean, at this point, cash is king, and so what can we do to help these smallest of the small businesses just stay afloat until the economy gets going? I mean, I'm hopeful. I believe once we reopen, people are going to go out and they're going to spend, and businesses are going to need to rehire. And let's just get us to that point.
The question about, I think we heard this in the last session we held, the trouble of business owners, as Kevin mentioned, Juliana mentioned, who want to reopen and then go to their employees, but their employees are actually making perhaps more money with the state unemployment and then the enhanced unemployment on top of that. We've had a few business owners ask this, are there any strategies to overcome that? I mean, Juliana mentions bonuses. I wonder if that's one way. What about temporarily increasing pay as long as the PPP is in place? I mean, are there any strategies to kind of incentivize employees to come back who might feel that way? I wonder, Brett, too, if you have any thoughts on that, that issue.
Yeah, so we've been trying to help business owners have that conversation with their employees of just because for the businesses to talk to the unemployment office to see what their options are if employees aren't coming back, and how that affects those employees' unemployment. That is a conversation they should be having, but also again, because the guidelines change so frequently, we do understand it that there are, the goal is to retain employees as much as possible and using the funds primarily for payroll. But again, hopefully more solid guidelines will come out with these new guidelines that were released last night as to exactly how to keep track of what you're doing. The guidance we've been giving at this point is just make sure everything is documented with a purpose as to why you did it.
Okay, great. We have a question in, someone just asking generally about a PPP loan. They're wondering how much, if they were approved, how much could they expect to get? And would it really be enough to cover employees for the duration of the crisis? Of course, that's a hard question because we don't exactly know what the duration might be, but what's the general ballpark for what someone could expect and how long it might be available?
Well, the amount, it's based on your payroll. So I mean, I really can't comment about the, whether it was 3,000 or 300,000. I can tell you, I mean, based on the statistics that we're seeing, this round, I think the average loan was about $119,000. And again, that's the expectation is that covers like 8 weeks of payroll. It may or may not cover 8 weeks of payroll. And in some instances, if people don't return to work, that you're going to wind up with a balance there. In the last round, that number was, I think, $200,000 for 8 weeks, the average loan. So you can see a lot more, I would say, smaller businesses are being approved in this round of funding, and that's a good thing. So the calculation is made based on what is your payroll. And I mean, there are, a lot of factors that are included in that. I mean, you have health benefits, you have, retirement, other benefits that are included in that calculation. So whatever you are eligible for, is based on a formula.
Okay, great, thanks. Well, we're just about at the end here, so I wonder if we could just go one by one, Kevin, Juliana, Brett, if you could just offer a resource for either tips or other kinds of resources for business owners that they may not be aware of right now that they could access in their community as kind of a next step if they want to know more who they could reach out to or what might be available to them. Juliana, you want to start?
Sure. So as Brett mentioned, news and the local magazines are in newspapers are the best way to get to know new resources that are being put out by your county, by your city, by local nonprofits. But I think technology is a great way to be able to share and be part of the SBA webinars, any local nonprofits providing guidance to small businesses. This is a great time to be part of a community and be able to connect with other people. We've been able to create some of those connections, businesses working together to keep operating during this time. So this is a good time to I know it's hard, but getting connected with any community members, organizations around you that can help you. So community actions, NCC offering webinars. 1 Million Cops is one of the resources that they keep meeting online to connect with other entrepreneurs on Wednesdays in the morning. And like I said, any news streams that can provide you information about new programs.
Great, thanks, Brett.
Sure. So, kind of just 2 quick tips. One, start getting your documentation together. That's the best thing, as these programs are coming out. We've unfortunately heard of a few clients who've missed out just because they can't, find the paperwork or they don't have it from their accountant. We don't want to see that. Start planning for the future. When you reopen, but resources, my recommendation, given how quickly everything changes, follow the social media channels of the PADCED, your local county, city governments, as they have different programs and their guidelines are changing, that's where you're going to find the most up-to-date information.
Great, thanks. And Kevin, finish it off.
Yeah, building on what Juliana and Brett have discussed, for a small business right now, cash is king. If you have not already done so, now is the time to have the conversation with your local bank. Community banks across the state are working with their customers right now on forbearance, loan deferments. They're helping to waive fees, and would certainly encourage you to have those individual conversations, with your local institution. And again, if you're thinking about one of these paycheck protection loans, you need to turn that thinking into action and at least start having a conversation with a bank to be able to get in line before the money runs out.
Okay, great. Thanks again to all of you for taking the time to participate. I know you have more work now than normal, so I really appreciate the time, and I think all of our attendees, I'm sure, appreciate it as well. Again, I want to encourage anyone who's not familiar with Spotlight PA to check out our website, spotlightpa.org. In addition to reporting on basically all aspects of the coronavirus, we have also been covering the impacts on businesses in the state. So there's additional reporting there. Finally, again, I want to thank our readers for their support, and also the support of the Lenfest Institute for Journalism, which is the nonprofit owner of the Philadelphia Inquirer, as well as the many other foundations and community foundations across the state that support our newsroom. We will make a copy of this event available on our website later today. And for anyone who attended or signed up, I'll make sure to distribute that link. Thanks again, everyone, for participating.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Okay, talk to you soon.